Hey, what is going on, guys? Represent Stealth here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the S tier champions for every single role for patch 9.19. This was probably one of the bigger patches of the season, so there's lots of different changes in this patch to the S tier champions. So with that being said, let's get started. So starting things off in the top lane here, and let me know what you guys think of the new overlay I'll be using for this video. If you guys like it or not, just let me know down in the comments below, and if you do, I can continue using it. So to start it off here though, in the S tier, we have Sion and Kale both moving up into S tier. So for Sion, he got directly buffed in this patch. His W just got a straight up 20 bonus shielding at all ranks on it, so it makes his laning phase a lot stronger. Sion is going to be your #1 go-to tank in this patch right now, so if your team is lacking a tank or if you're just lacking engage, then Sion is definitely going to be a great champion to pick up in this patch. And then for the Kale pick, much better in solo queue now ever since she did get her mini rework a few patches back. The fact you do hit a spike now at level 6 there, you get your range form at level 6, does make her a lot more productive in solo queue, and you can just have a much better impact with this new Kale. She can do very well into a lot of melee bruiser champions in the laning phase too. You run the kleptomancy on this Kale, so you just really accelerate your build path in those matchups. There are two different builds right now going around on Kale. It's either the Gunblade Rush into the Nashers and Rageblade, or it's the Manamune Rush into the Nashers and Rageblade. Gunblade is going to give you a little bit of an earlier spike there, so if you're winning lane, if you're in a matchup to where you can snowball, then I would look to go the Gunblade. If you're in a more difficult matchup though, if you don't think you're going to be able to snowball super hard, you're not going to be able to have a very big impact in the early game, then going for the tier, going for the Manamune is going to allow you to scale a lot better into the mid to late game. And then for some honorable mentions there, Fiora is going to be one of them. So I don't think Fiora is an S tier champion just yet. I feel like she needs one more small buff in order to make that jump up into S tier. The buffs she did receive in this patch are nice, but they don't really help her out in matchups she was already losing before. The buffs really only help her out in her winning matchups, in matchups she won before. So she is going to snowball even harder in her winning matchups, but in her losing matchups, she doesn't really get any better with the buffs, which is why I'm not moving her up into S tier. So moving into the jungle now, Echo is going to be moving up into S tier. So the buffs he did receive in last patch did actually help out jungle Echo a little bit more than mid lane Echo. The fact you do have the extra stun duration now on your W does make your ganks a lot more potent in the early game. If you're able to land that W on the opponent, you're either going to guarantee to burn their flash or guarantee a kill when you are ganking if you can use that correctly. So it's just a very good gank tool, and you should be able to have a lot of success with Echo in this patch if you do put the games into him. He's a champion that definitely does take a little bit more time to get used to, especially in the jungle, but if you put the time into the champion, he definitely can be very rewarding. Now there are two different build paths and rune setups going around right now on Echo. For solo queue, for most elos, I would just recommend running the Electrocute, going the Runic Echoes into Protobolt and Lichbane. Some people do like to run the Conquer and go for more of a tank setup on Echo, so they go Conquer, Runic Echoes, usually Iceborne Gauntlet, Spirit Visage. I wouldn't really recommend that one unless you're in the higher elos. I think for the majority of elos, you should be sticking to just the AP setup, the full AP one-shot build on Echo. And then for the rest of the jungle picks there's a lot of diversity right now in 9.19. I think this is one of the best metas to where you can just choose 3 champions in the jungle, stick to those champions, and at least one of them is going to be good for every single game. It's not like we're in a meta to where only AD junglers are strong or only AP junglers or tank junglers are good. All kinds of junglers are pretty good right now in 9.19, so I'd recommend having a tank jungler in your pool. Either the Nunu, the Mundo, the Zac are super good. Having an AD jungler in there like the Kha'Zix, the Hecarim, the Vi, and then for an AP jungler, the Echo and the Elise are super good in this patch. For the Graves and the Zac picks, both champions did get directly buffed in this patch, and both champions are definitely on the verge of making a jump up into S tier. Zac has been repeatedly buffed now over the past couple of months, and with the buff he did receive in this patch, it's finally propelled him into a spot to where he is now one of the top tier junglers for solo queue. For the Graves pick there, he did get a couple of small buffs in this patch. He did get a base AD increase by 2 there, so it does help out his early game, helps out his clear dueling potential in the early game, and if you are looking for another good AD jungler to add to your champion pool, then Graves is going to be a great pickup for this patch. And then moving on to the mid lane now, S tier is going to be looking pretty much the same as to where it was in last patch. So Malz and Ahri have been very good for what it seems multiple months in a row now. These champions have just been great for solo queue. The Fizz, the Talon, the Zed, and the Castan, all very strong assassin picks for solo queue in 9.19. And then for some honorable mentions there, you got your Orianna, Twisted Fate, and Veigar, who all got directly buffed in 9.19. Orianna with the change to her ultimate there does give her a lot more team fight impact. It does give her more solo kill potential as well in the laning phase. Once she does hit level 6, 50 extra base damage there on your ultimate is going to make a difference in a lot of situations. So Orianna, really good pick for the mid lane, especially if you're looking to pick up mid for the first time. A great beginner mid lane champion and a champion who can do pretty well in most matchups. You're not really going to lose lane super hard in any matchups with Orianna. She does have some more difficult matchups, but she's definitely a pretty safe blind pick for solo queue. For Twisted Fate, he got 2 different buffs to his E in this patch. Attack speed and base damage both got increased, so AD Twisted Fate does get more so buffed than AP Twisted Fate, but that's not to say that AP Twisted Fate still isn't a good pick. It's a very good pick. It's still a great setup on him. AD Twisted Fate, I wouldn't even say is better. Both versions of TF are just really good, and depending on the situation, depending on if your team needs AD or AP, or depending on your matchup, you can go for one or the other setup and have very good success on TF. So just a very versatile mid lane pick due to the fact that he can go for those 2 different setups. For Veigar, he got a really nice buff to his E in this patch. The cooldown on that thing got reduced by 2 seconds at max rank, and considering you max this out second on Veigar, you are going to have a much better mid game spike now on the champion. The amount of picks you're going to be able to find now with Veigar in the mid game, because this ability is on a shorter cooldown, is going to be much better in this patch, and you're going to be able to basically spam this ability out now in team fights, considering this ability with 40% CDR will now be on a 7-second cooldown once you do get it maxed out. And also the fact that it stays on the field for 3 seconds. There's only really like a 4-second downtime between you being able to use your E now in this patch, so it's just going to allow you to find a lot more picks. It's going to allow you to zone a lot better with the champion. So Veigar is 100% going to be one of the most sleeper OP picks right here for 9.19. Down to the bot lane now, first taking a look at AD carry. Ashe and Vayne both got buffs in this patch. I do think the Ashe changes were definitely a little bit more impactful than the Vayne changes. Having that auto attack reset now on your Q for this patch is just going to make Ashe feel so much smoother to play. This is something that Ashe players have been asking for I'd probably say years now on the champion, and for them to finally add it onto her kit or into her kit is going to make her trading pattern a lot more nicer in the laning phase. It's just going to make playing Ashe feel a lot more smoother. She also did get a buff to her passive as well, to the slow there, so if you are looking for a new AD carry to add to your champ pool for this patch, definitely consider picking up Ashe. Now for builds on Ashe right now, there's 2 different setups that you can go for. It's either the Bork into the Runins and then Infinity Edge, or Bork Infinity Edge Runins, or you can go for the Essence Reaver into Triforce and then Runins. The Essence Reaver Triforce build is going to give you a lot more CDR. It's going to put your ultimate on a much shorter cooldown, so I would say that if you're new to AD carry or if you're just picking up Ashe, then I would go for the CDR build just so you do provide your team with much more utility. If you're going for the Bork build into Runins and Infinity Edge, you're not going to have any CDR with that setup, so you're more reliant on dealing damage to be impactful. So it kind of depends on your playstyle, kind of depends on personal preference. For the rest of the AD carry meta, it's going to stay pretty similar to where it was last patch. So Jinx, Caitlyn, Jhin, and Draven all still superior AD carry picks. If there's one I would prioritize a little bit more than the others, it would definitely be Caitlyn. I think Caitlyn right now, especially with how the support meta is, she can have great success in solo queue. For the honorable mentions, for Miss Fortune, she got buffed in last patch. I do think she's a great pick for the lower elos. And then for Xayah, despite the nerfs she did receive last patch, they were pretty decent nerfs, but I still think she is one of the more reliable AD carries for solo queue. The fact you do have the self peel in your kit with her ultimate does allow you to do pretty well into heavy dive composition. So if you do notice the enemy team comp has something like a Fizz in the mid lane, Hecarim in the jungle, and you're just going to be dove on all game, then instead of picking somebody like the Ashe or the Jinx to where you're probably just going to die in every single team fight, picking the Xayah is going to be a great option in that situation because you are going to be able to survive much easier on your own. And then lastly, to round it all out down in the support role for S tier, Blitzcrank is going to be the strongest support you can play in 9.19. So definitely you should be looking to add Blitz to your champion pool. If you don't, you should be looking to ban him out for this patch because the increased range there on his Q by 100 and the alt buffs do make him much stronger. There's going to be a lot of situations in this patch, at least early on in the patch, to where you're going to hit a hook and the enemy is just not going to expect it at all. There's also a lot of new things you can do with Blitz hook in this patch, to where you can look to hook a red buff and like use the blast cone and get it into the dragon pit to deny the enemy red buff early on. You can also do some cool things with blue buff. You can hook in certain areas to where you couldn't hook before. So there's definitely going to be a lot of experimenting with the new Blitz in this patch, but that new hook range increase there is definitely going to be very impactful in 9.19. For the rest of the support picks there, Leona, Pyke, Nautilus, Zyra, all very good aggressive supports for 9.19, especially with the Ashe pick going to be played a lot more now in this patch as well. Ashe paired up with Zyra, Ashe paired up with Leona, really Ashe paired up with any CC support does allow you to have a lot of kill threat in lane, especially once you do hit that level 6 there. So I'd definitely be looking to play one of these more aggressive supports in 9.19 if you do want to carry the hardest. The Janna pick there is still definitely very strong. It's not a weak pick by any means, but I just think it has a little bit less carry potential, a little bit less solo carry potential. It can still do a very good job at keeping your team safe, keeping your team alive, especially in mid to late game fights. I still think she's great paired up with something like the Vayne, who's going to be played a lot more in this patch here. So it does depend on your playstyle, but any of these supports in the S tier are great picks for 9.19. And then for the honorable mentions there, for Bard, Thresh, Nami, and Soraka, all have been pretty good past few patches here. For the Swain pick though, it is kind of a new pick down in the support role. It's been seeing a lot more popularity over the past few patches here. It can have a very good laning phase. You got great pick potential in lane with the Swain with your E. If you hit that E in lane, followed up with your Q and an auto attack, you get a very easy electrocute proc there, and you can just have a great time in lane, especially if you pair Swain up with an aggressive AD carry. As long as you can consistently hit your E in lane with Swain, you're gonna be able to find a lot of early kills and you're gonna be able to snowball the lane out of control. So that's gonna be it for the video, guys. Those are going to be the strongest champions that you can play in solo queue for patch 9.19. So if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.